It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
You're listening to the RAP podcast, the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Pod, where we try to cover all the important issues on and off the field in Welsh regional and national rugby. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, all of that information is at the end, so you'll just have to bear with us and get to that bit. In the meantime, enjoy this week's show. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the RAP podcast, the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Pod. See how slow I took that? Yeah, see how I had to slow that one down because I keep getting it wrong. Every week we do this and I'll get that wrong at least once, probably twice. And that's, yeah. Anyway, joining me as always this evening is Jamie, Reese and Carwyn. Good evening, gents. How are you all?
How's it going? You all right, boys?
Yeah, so Reese has lost his echo, which is
good
news.
Yeah, good evening, guys.
Yeah, good evening. Can I just say before we start, sorry, I got to say this, I know you were keen about, but I'm really excited about our next guest because I know I'm going to sound like a cringy fanboy, but I have been a fan. I have been a fan of this guy for years and I love his videos. I'm absolutely delighted he's joining us tonight. He's actually agreed to come on the pod and I really appreciate it.
It's Razzie Erasmus.
Absolutely. Hey.
How many times have we had to change your pants today, James, knowing that he was coming on tonight?
I'm very excited and I won't lie about it, okay?
Hey, I've had the same thing. I've had to change my own pants so many times thinking of coming on here. Mostly because I'm shitting myself. Am I allowed to have checked that?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, for those of you that don't recognise that voice, that is the voice of the one and only Squidge Rugby. So, Robbie, good evening and welcome to the pod, my friend.
Oh, good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. What a week. What a week to be here.
What a week.
Yeah.
I mean, normally we crack on straight with the rugby and all that kind of stuff, but we've got so much other stuff to get through. But before we do anything, let's just get some admin out the way. Drink of the week, boys. What drink of the week have we got?
Who's going first?
Well,
me isn't talking.
Jamie wants to go last because he's going to start a fight with someone about Tiny Rebel beer. So let's leave Jamie.
Let's go.
Yeah. Carwyn, what have you got, mate?
All right, so like I said, I am on the king of beers. Just the one tonight. It's not even shown on the screen. The Budweiser, which is going down lovely. It's the only one I'm having tonight, as I am working tomorrow. But I just want to raise my Budweiser to Mr. Squidge there, as a fellow Osprey. It's good to have some support on the show tonight. Thank you. Cheers.
Well, you're going to need it, mate. You're going to need it. Reese, what have you got, mate?
I'm going to look like I've got a problem. Like I've got a cracked in rum and coke tonight because I couldn't find any beer in there.
Ooh.
Is that a pint glass?
It's a larger glass, but it's full of coke. Like I'm not hammering the rum tonight, like, isn't it? You know?
Crikey. So, Squidge, what have you got, mate?
I've got a cup of tea because
excellent. That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
I've only had 3 today so far, and I've got to get up to my usual limit before I can start on anything else. I've got to have drank at least 7 or 8 by 8 p.m. So it might be a busy next 20 minutes.
Well, I've got a bottle of American IPA by Shipyard. It's an American one. It's called Shipyard. I don't know if Shipyard's the name of the beer or the name of the company.
Yeah, I like that. It's good stuff, man.
Have you tried it before?
Yeah, it's on tap in a few pubs around Cardiff.
Is it?
Yeah, so yeah. It's good stuff.
Oh, right. Must be a Cardiff thing then. Yeah, well, it's very nice. Right, Jamie, what sack of shit have you got this evening, mate?
Well, you know what time it is, boys, today? It's Tiny Rebel time. Oh, yes.
Go on.
And this week, I got to get this right because it's a bit of a mouthful. It's cookie dough biscuit mix millionaire shortbread.
Oh, my God. That's horrendous.
Oh, my God.
I'm not going to lie, it's sweet as fuck.
Where did I get this from?
Jesus Christ.
It's the first time I tried it. I went in Tiny Rebel today and I picked up a can. But I got to be careful on this, right? Because you know what the percentage is?
Oh, it's got to be what, 7%, isn't it?
It's fucking 8%.
Oh, man, you're going to be bollocks.
Well, these are fucked, basically. So I got to be careful now. I can't drink too many of them. But yeah, Tiny Rebel, lovely.
8% cookie
say, I just think it can't get any worse, the flavours, but you top it every week. Isn't it? There's pressure to do it now.
Do you remember when we started this? You said you didn't want to do beer of the week because you don't drink during the week.
I did say 8%,
that. 8%, James.
Well, that's your fault.
8%.
This is what this podcast has done to me. I'm drinking now during the week, every week, and I never used to do that. So that's your fault, and you got your responsibility for that.
That and Welsh Rugby.
Yeah.
Oh God,
I think Welsh Rugby will do that to you, mate.
Yeah.
So, a few years ago, Jamie, we met in Tiny Rebel in Cardiff.
We did. It was
Judgment Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you exclusively sponsored by them, or you? Is
it
some kind of like?
He's trying.
Like that episode of Community where they have a student who renames himself Subway as a subliminal marketing thing. Are you just following me with Tiny Rebel branding at all times to get me drinking their cookie dough beers?
It would be my absolute dream to be sponsored by Tiny Rebel. But Grav from the Rock and Roll podcast, he chipped in, didn't he, on the weekend. He didn't like me talking about Tiny Rebel. No. Well, sorry, Grav, I am, and I'm going to continue to do it. But what I will say is this. Because he wants Tiny Rebel to sponsor his podcast, right? If they do decide, serious, if Tiny Rebel do decide to sponsor the Rock and Roll podcast, I'm boycotting their products. And I am never setting foot in a Tiny Rebel pub again. So, and to be fair, I've given Tiny Rebel a lot of PR on this podcast, haven't I, boys? I've drunk pretty much all their beers now. So if they're listening, sponsor, please do.
It's a line in the sand.
Yeah, you drunk that peanut butter shit that they do as well.
My God.
And I mean,
yeah,
peanut butter and cookie. That's fucking dedicated. That is, man. Yeah.
But also,
cookie dough biscuit mix millionaire shortbread. That's the full title.
Also, if Budweiser are listening, we quite happy to be sponsored by you as well.
Or tea. Or tea in general.
Oh, crikey. What we'll do, Jamie, is we'll set up a fight on Judgment Day. Yeah, we'll set up a little fight in the middle, in between you and Grav, like in between the games. And whoever wins.
I don't want to be fighting, man. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I don't want to. I'm sure Grav's a lovely bloke. I'm sure he is. I don't want to fight
get
him.
Those big sumo suits and have it done properly.
You've got to sink a can of the peanut butter and the cookie dough before you get into the
All right, you're going too far now, mate. Yeah. Come on, now this is getting silly now. Come on. Fuck it now.
Right, let's get into the rugby. Come on.
Yeah, let's do rugby. Oh, okay.
That's a way to start, isn't it?
I mean, I'll be honest, as a Scarlets fan, I loved the weekend. But if you boys want to start on some of the other stuff,
we can't hear you. You're on mute. We can't hear
you. Let's start with Squidge. What did you make of the rugby the weekend, mate?
Oh, it was sad. It was. I didn't enjoy quite a lot of it. I'll be honest with you. We've also hit that point in the season where when the Ospreys lost on the Friday night, I then would normally watch the Cardiff game and I had it kind of allotted out and everything. Trying really hard not to call them the Blues, as I normally still do. It's then at that point in the season now where normally I just, even though the Ospreys primarily, up until the last few weeks of the season when you need the results to go your way, I will just cheer for any of the Welsh teams at any given point. Because it's all for the good of the national team, etc. And I want to see them all doing well. But it's at that point in the season now, the slightly depressing point, where it's like, oh no, I want Benetton to be beating Cardiff so that we can win the beloved Welsh Shield. And then it got to a point when they won, where you're like, I now just want all the others to lose, so we're all miserable.
Company, that's true. And let's be honest, like Cardiff have come and stepped badly against Benetton in the past, doesn't it?
But that game on Friday, the Ospreys game on Friday was just... It was horrendous. There was about 5 minutes in the first half where I thought, all right, they might be trying to compete. They might be coming back into this. And the rest of it was just a pounding and a half. It was, I enjoyed it, obviously, as a Scarlet supporter. It was...
Stop rubbing salt in the wound, man. Yeah. Come on.
Hey, listen, it was horrendous. Like I mentioned online, the boys wore their hearts on their sleeve. They tried their best with everything that's going on at the moment. No squad players released back to the region. I think I think the Scarlets were missing 4 players, but they got their internationals, their foreign overseas internationals in the squad. Dragons turned up really well. I watched the first 20 minutes. Thought, they're one of the great shots here. Then obviously it went down south, and Cardiff clearly had a good game. But all those teams are missing hardly any players, and like I said, with all the things going on at the moment in Welsh rugby, you could see it. They were drained, absolutely drained, emotional, and it was hard to take. Because I tell you what, a full strength Ospreys turn up without a Munster, it would have been a different scoreline. I'm telling you right now, it would have been a different scoreline.
Yeah, and I think there's actually, when you look at that game, there were a handful of really key moments in the first 20 odd minutes that, if you maybe had you had a handful of lineouts. So I think the Ospreys' first 4 lineouts, they tried the same move in Elvis Taioni balls it up. And then, trying to do that wrap around that's very popular with modern hookers who, have great skill sets. Elvis Taioni is 39 and, played for Tonga in, 5 World Cups ago. He is a hooker with a certain skill set. And that is not a move that plays to his certain skill set, I think. And you had that kind of, so the Ospreys, and then the next one he overthrew. So the Ospreys failed to win, essentially. They lost the ball on, I think, their first 5 lineouts. Yes. So you have that. And then you have the fact that there were maybe 4 big refereeing decisions in that first 20 minutes that could have gone either way. And one of them was the Bradley Davis card that could have been a red. It ended up being a yellow. But the others, things like Simon Zebo having a hands on the floor that gets given as a knock on when the player didn't touch it when it went forward, and a few things like that started to compile. And suddenly, when the Ospreys have had maybe 9 moments of momentum go against them in the first 20 minutes, it started to all be a bit hopeless. And I think once Munster got the bonus point on half time, after having had this relentless momentum, everything being handed to them by the Ospreys primarily, it started to get quite ugly. And I think, as you said, if you could have just dropped maybe 1 or 2 players in there, if you could have dropped, even if it's Scott Baldwin or someone in, and they're able to secure more of their own line-out ball, I think things could have been different, and it could have been, not saying they would have won, but it would have been a different game that wouldn't have screwed over the points difference going forward for the rest of the season. And I think then the moment things started to go badly, it kind of all fell into the sheer doom and gloom this week. And you look at the press conferences, both Booth and Bradley Davis, when they did the talk this week, almost the entire thing was about the issues, as most of the podcasts, I imagine, will go on to reflect that, because that is the topic of discussion. And there was maybe one question to each of them about the Munster game. And that kind of felt like it took over. It kind of that game became more about the state of Welsh rugby this week, and indeed in general, then it became about how good the Ospreys are versus how good Munster are. Once I said the Ospreys had lost a little bit of confidence, at least that's how it felt to me once I had a moment to reflect on it. Because at the time, I just felt like, this is horrible.
But I've always said, like, in previous Six Nations, that the Ospreys always seem to end up playing these stronger teams during the Six Nations. There should be a gap when the Six Nations is on. There is no rugby, or if the rugby's on, the players get released. Like there was no choice with English-based players going back and playing, and there shouldn't be a choice. The lads should go back to play for the regions. It's what it's their primarily function is to play for the region. They're paid to play for the regions.
I think,
and it's tough. Well, I just think it's tough.
I think that's a lot of the problem. Is just how much of this Welsh squad is English and French based, so they just needed the numbers for training.
Yeah,
and that then becomes, the Ospreys are disproportionately affected by that.
Yeah, or there should be a block during the Six Nations, so it's fair, because it's, like I said, it's an important time of the season for all regions to climb that ladder, and to have that break, either giving the lads rest or whatever. I think it's just unfair. I think it shows the league in a bad light.
Just for context, Karen, so Ireland had 12 players released back to their provinces. Scotland released 8 back to their clubs. Wales released 0. Now, on the one hand, right, these players do provide really good prep. They are important for the preparation of test matches, okay? But then on the other hand, why can't Wales release the likes of Bradley Roberts, Aaron Wainwright, Mason Grady, Kieran Williams, Teddy Williams? Why can't they release them? Surely it'd be in the best interest for them to get some game time under their belts. What harm is it doing just to release 3, 4, 5 players? And, if Scotland and Ireland can do it, why can't Wales? That's why I struggled with this week,
If they do get released, so the likes of Zamet and what have you, what day do they go back to clubs? Do you know how much training are they actually missing to go back for that game? I don't think they're missing a massive amount of training. There's maybe a session on a Friday that they might miss. And if they've had a really rough weekend, there might be a session on a Monday that they might miss. In the big scheme of things, that's not a massive amount for those players to miss. And particularly players like Kieran Williams, a couple of the others who just haven't featured so far, Mason Grady, people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But what's the harm in? They need game time, don't they? Yeah, Teddy Williams.
Teddy Williams, he started 2 games of the season. Yeah,
it's crazy.
And both those players, like Teddy Williams and Mason Grady, just like they are coming on leaps and bounds for their region, sort of thing, and now they're getting no sort of game time, no sort of development, no sort of, and they were just playing so well. And Mason Grady sort of played that role that they're choosing North for, can't he? Like, isn't it? That North isn't performing at the moment. Like,
he knows what he's doing.
A reason, isn't he? Like, he's there for that big number 13, and that's something. Even though he's inexperienced, but the state of the Welsh performances at the moment, why not throw Mason Grady in?
Well, we have them in there with Kieran Williams, Mason Grady centre partnership, or Tompkins Grady with Kieran Williams on the bench.
We'll do that later, mate.
It's better for these players.
We'll do squad selection when Jamie's finished his beer.
It's better for these players to play than hold tackle backs, I think. I just don't see the harm in them getting, Gatland could even say to them, okay, we're going to release you back to your regions, but I only want him playing 50, 60 minutes. And it's something, isn't it? He could have done that. It could have been a bit of compromise, but just to go, no. And then, you see Ireland releasing 12 players and Scotland releasing 8. I think it stinks a little bit. They got to be fair. They really do.
So if you were analysing that game on Friday then, Rob, how long would it take you to go through that video, and how long would your video be of that game?
It would either be 3 hours or 2 minutes, and there'd be no in between. It would, I think, I said a lot of it. I think there was a lot of key turning points in that first kind of 20 odd minutes. It's something that Toby Booth constantly mentions. I quite enjoy playing Toby Booth bingo when listening to Interviewed, because he says bits and pieces a lot. And he says he'll use the word effort in every single interview. He'll talk about the effort constantly. And the other thing is he brings up a lot is he says, in games they win, he'll say we won the key moments, or in the games they lost, narrowly it'll be we lost the key moments.
Yes, I noticed that. That's right.
Yeah. I think there's something in that though. I think there's something unquantifiable. You can't put in stats, but the Ospreys on Friday lost all of the key moments, like every single one. And normally a team of their ability, and we talk about the players that weren't released. I think that's still quite a strong Ospreys team on paper, and it's the team that played a lot of last season when you had so many players injured or out for other reasons. I don't think it was as weak a team as that scoreboard would suggest. But it'd be looking at that, and then obviously they have to go. Okay, I've got to talk about Munster, even though #Squidge hates Ireland apparently, because I think there's a lot that was right and going well with Munster as well.
But I mean, that's so from a Scarlet point of view, we're playing Munster next, and we could have done with you beating a couple of them up. We could have done with a bit of a ruck every now and again, and a bit of a shoe-in, and at least a couple of them injured. We had fuck all, boys. There was 15 of them walked off the pitch in perfect condition.
Fully pumped up Gavin Coombs coming your way, I'm afraid.
Yay!
He's good though, isn't he?
I can't wait to watch that game. I'll be dressed in my red Munster shirt, drinking Irish ale, watching the game.
Come on now, show unity. It's just Welsh rugby. You all need to be sticking together. But yeah, I'm with you, Calvin. Absolutely.
You boys are just jealous. So let's talk about the Dragons stuffing then. I mean, in all honesty, for about 20 minutes of that game, James, I thought, like I said to you, I thought my prediction of a narrow Dragons win looked.
That was just stupid. Why the fuck you said that for? That was just, you were just being silly. Narrow Dragons win. Come on.
But it was for 20 odd minutes, your boys are in that game and showed that they can compete. It just went to shit after that.
There were some massive hits going in. Absolutely, some cracking tackles going in the first 20 minutes, and I thought, they're really up for this. Maybe a chance. And then I'll try and
keep. I want to keep this brief because we got bigger stuff to move on to, and I don't want to keep talking about the Dragons. If I'm honest, it's just going to bring me down. The first thing to say is last week I predicted a 30-point win to Leinster, and it was actually 29 points. So it's 1 point out. That's the first thing I wanted to say.
Second thing I wanted, but you can, James.
Just all close to comfort. I was close.
You predicted that your boys are going to get an absolute shafting, and you were right. And that's your positive.
To be fair,
it was 1 point better than you expected. That's great.
Exactly. to be fair, right? What I was going to say is, I know the scoreline looks a bit ugly, but I don't think it reflected actually the Dragons' efforts. And Ty Flanagan said that after the game, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be honest. Because I'm not going to lie, I thought it would have been like what we saw at Tolman Park. I was genuinely expecting that kind of scoreline. I'm not saying that to be funny, I genuinely was. But fair play, I thought we showed a lot of spirit, a lot of endeavour. And if we had taken our opportunities, we did have quite a number of opportunities. We were in Leicester's 22 quite a lot, but we're just not clinical enough. We botched so many lineouts, and it's the unforced errors, and we did make Leinster uncomfortable for a little while. I mean, I thought in the first 20 minutes we were pretty good, but of course Leinster being Leinster, they're going to come back hard at you, they're just going to pile on the pressure. It was a decent showing, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. But what did upset me, I gotta say, there was two incidents that did upset me. So obviously Jack Dixon going off injured, and especially after his words in the week, he's quite emotional, he's quite passionate, worried about his future. He's got a kid on the way. He doesn't know what's happening with his contract. Like a lot of players in Wales, it's all up in the air, and he was quite emotional about it. And seeing him hobbling off at half time was gutting, because his worst fears came true, and I felt so bad for the bloke. And then you had Steph Hughes then after the game, speaking to S4C. It's gone viral now, that interview. He spoke so well. I love Steph Hughes, brilliant player, really smart guy. Just encapsulated the feeling amongst players in Welsh rugby, the anxiety they're going through. And it was tough. It was really tough to see that. But as you know, for the performance, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought we were competitive for most of that game. I was listening to the Harping on Rugby podcast earlier, and they were very complimentary of the Dragons. They said we showed more fight than Cardiff, which I did laugh at. I like that.
Way to tell you that.
They said we applied ourselves better than Cardiff. So
that's how they rate their wins. They go, they show 3 or 4% of fight. The opposition that we trounced every week. They've got to talk about something, I suppose, on the Leinster Fans podcast, other than how like Jamie Osborne is better than Marnonu or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're watching Leinster a lot and you're trying to analyse that kind of game, does it get a bit boring? Do you know what I mean? They're through, they're scoring. Isn't it better to analyse someone like the Dragons where there's a little bit of hope when you can go, do you know what I mean?
There'd be more to pick out, wouldn't there? There'd be loads of like stuff to pick out on the Dragons. This is what they should be doing. This is what they are doing. You know.
I'm like, I love watching teams like the Dragons, like how the Dragons have been this season.
It's a
they make me feel better about the world. Make me feel better about myself, you know. No, but like teams like the Dragons have been under Flanagan. And like the Ospreys have been under Toby Booth as well, who are just really spirited and really hardworking. And that's how, you know, the classic Gatland Wales teams were. And they're maybe not the most talented or the most kind of cutting edge tactically teams, but they are so bloody minded that you can't stop them. You can't kind of break them down. They never give up. And those are kind of often my favorite teams to watch back and to celebrate, I think. Whereas a Leinster team who are just like flawlessly excellent and like the kind of, you know, like, well, what's the point? You know, it's kind of like, oh, well done.
Yeah.
Well done. You brought in Tector. Who's Tector? I've never heard of him. Oh, he scored. Well done. Okay, brilliant. It's like, I've been there before, you know? Like, I feel like I've watched it. Yeah. It's like, is this live?
Dave Flanagan there, right, Robbie? Dave Flanagan has got to be the most positive bloke in Welsh rugby, right? Because, honestly, he did a post-match press conference before the Leinster game and he was saying, you know, Leinster are a very good team, they compete on the roll, but they got to lose sometime. Why can't it be against us? I'm like, fucking hell, Dave. I mean, there's positivity, but we're the Dragons, like, come on. I mean, that's just blind faith, isn't it? I mean, that's just crazy talk. But even after the game, right, because we were well beaten, and he is right to point out, you know, how well the players, you know, soldiered on and the spirit they showed. But he was so happy. He was like, really happy. You know, he's just bouncing along and smiling. And even when he's saying, like, you know, serious stuff, like, he's just got a smile on his face. I've never known someone to be so positive about everything. And you contrast that to Dean Ryan, who was about pretty much every fucking thing in Welsh rugby. It's like, it's a complete contrast.
Or to Dave Flanagan's son.
Yeah. That was so funny.
He's always on there.
The other week when he came out and they said, like, oh, the Dragons going to win again next week. Ross Harries asked him very slickly, and he went, maybe.
And he went, oh, come on, you got to support your dad. He just went,
that's an East Walian response to rugby.
No, he's a full-on Dragons fan. Now, that's the positivity. When you follow the Dragons, that's the positivity. It's just, maybe we'll win. Who knows? But, good old Di.
Maybe it'll only be 29 points.
So, going back to analysing teams that aren't doing well and stuff, right? So, when you've got someone like, I don't know, Ross Moriarty, you know, somebody that's on the pitch that you know is going to give you something. You know, he's going to lose his head at some time, and he's going to create a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff revolves around Ross Moriarty. So, how much time do you spend with a little magnifying glass and going forward and back and going, I'm gonna? Do you know what I mean? Have you got like certain players that you look for?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you get a sense watching something live that someone was involved there, or you want to go back and look again. And it's like when I looked at the Ireland-France game last week, a lot of that time you can kind of work out what Ireland are doing based on where Gael Fickou is. because he's so important to them defensively, you can kind of then get a sense for what everyone else is doing based on who's kind of taking him out, who's marking him, who's kind of pulling and tugging him whenever you're involved in anything else. And often you do find, like 10s in particular, I find you can often work out what's going on based on there. Like I did a big video on George Ford just because I think he is the best at it, at kind of calling things around him and spotting what's on the fly. And very anxious to see him out of the England squad out of nowhere now the moment he's fit.
First person I thought of was you when I saw his name called up. You must be delighted, Squidge.
Oh, I can't wait. But yeah, I mean, he's exceptional. It's the thing I really like about Will Reed at the Dragons, to bring it back to the Dragons, is I think he's got a similar kind of temperament and similar kind of, he clearly sees the game very slowly. Like he's got, he can clearly see things ahead of them happening. And I really like that. I really like him. He's like, I am not a coach, I would not be a very good coach, but if I were one, if I were, in the national setup, I'd be bringing him in right away and just want to have a look at him and see how he kind of adapts to that standard, because I think he's a kind of 10 Wales doesn't have another of at the minute in terms of that 10 who anticipates and reads the game ahead of time. But it's a player like that where you can kind of spot them, like Paolo Garbisi is Fritley and so on. And I think once you get a sense for what a player's like, you can then kind of get an idea from going back and watching and knowing what to look for a bit.
Absolutely.
I'd love it if you were my coach, because what are we doing for tonight's session? Oh, it's fitness. What are we doing? We're watching a 3-hour video on how to run around the pitch really fast. Okay, yeah. I could live with that. That was my kind of fitness session.
The level of detail that you go into for when you do the analysis and stuff like that. I read in one of the articles I was reading on you about the World Cup final, and you were and there was a close up of Stefan de Toy, and he said, "I just knew that close up was the 63rd."
Yeah.
And I kind of a match. Just bring that back just like that.
Slightly fading now, but I got to know that final so well. I watched it so many times the week of, to do the video and everything. And then I did 2 more videos on the Springboks after that on, how good they are and so on. And so I came to know it very, very well. And then also I was just dropping clips in other videos because it's a really good kind of example to use if you're wanting generic examples or something to go to the last World Cup final, and it became the game I knew best. So I'd go like, okay, I know in the 23rd minute, this isn't a real example, but so-and-so makes a carry or a tackle, or I know it's about there. I know, like if I want an example of someone regathering their own kick, I know Andre Pollard does one in the 8th minute, so that'd be fine. And you kind of, it all starts to click like that. So like the Women's World Cup final from last year as well is now becoming similar. And I now kind of know that, not quite to the same degree, but yeah, it's one of the weird parts of the job is you come to know lots of odd little bits of, where to look for close-ups. And, I'll often make a note if a game has lots of shots of the coach, because sometimes they do, like French coverage has far fewer shots of the coaches. So it becomes a nightmare if I'm talking about them a lot. You kind of can't pull the footage of them from that week's games. This is getting very inside baseball or inside rugby. But yeah, this Dragons.
Great. Dragons.
Let's talk about a positive game then. Let's talk about somebody who knows how to play the game, who knows how to score tries. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
You can go first.
Only 2 minutes, so yeah, boys. 2 minutes each.
Yeah, keep it brief, boys, for time constricted.
Yeah. Go on, Reece. You go first. We'll save the best to last, mate. Go on.
I was very proud of the boys. I think with everything happening, I thought we played the game. I'm going to sound just like every bit of rugby coverage ever, isn't it? We played the game in the right areas, but we did. I thought when Jared Evans had to go and Ben Thomas moved across, I think he's a classy player. I thought Owen Lane, he can be quite dodgy, like defensively, but it's undeniably his attacking threats. We scored, then they scored, and there's that thought at the back of my head going, oh, is it going to be like last season? But no, and I thought we scored some really good tries in the backs. Ratty going over showed some forward dominance. I thought our hip was absolutely making a mess of him before he got a tweak.
Your brother from another mother, yeah.
My brother from when me and Carwyn, Robbie went to see the Cardiff Ospreys game at the Arms Park sort of thing. We bumped into him sort of at the photo, and I just do look like his older, more unfit brother, like unhealthy food.
Reece sent us all a photo on our WhatsApp group, and he went, "Is me and my brother," and we all kind of went, "Yeah." And
it's like, what was that?
It kind of looks familiar, but it took a good couple of hours to sink in. Actually,
but Rich, you talk about Owen's defensive frailty. He got back, Owen Lane, and he made an absolute cracking try-saving moment there.
Getting
back. I don't know, and you couldn't even see where he came from on the pitch, because the camera just wasn't there. He was just shifting from one side of the pitch to the try area.
He's been out for quite a while, and when he first came back, I thought he'd lost maybe half a yard of pace, sort of thing. But incrementally, that seems to be coming back. Like he's getting his sharpness back.
Yeah,
for sure.
That was a good win for Cardiff.
Mate, I was stoked, because you can't. There's no bankers in the league anymore, especially with the performances we're putting in, and especially with. But I guess Cardiff haven't lost like some of the key players like other regions have. We still got like Jared Evans, and you still call on sort of Ben Thomas and Owen Lane. And
good to see Max Llewellyn back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We haven't got him too much longer, but
made the most of him.
Yeah, he's on his way over the bridge, isn't he? So absolutely happy with that. And I put it up on Twitter, like how proud with everything that's happening, that they put in a performance that they did.
It's one of those games that is just really easy to lose. It's really easy to slip up there and lose that. And it's the kind of thing that requires a team to be steady and composed more than it does to be talented. And that's almost a more encouraging thing than if they'd, if this fixture had taken place in December or something and they'd absolutely smashed them. I think it's more encouraging kind of what it means for the Blues.
Yes.
Or for Cardiff.
He's done it. He's called them the Blues.
Say Blues.
There we
That's
go.
fine. Call them Blues. It's absolutely fine.
What it means for
Bush card, Robbie card. Sorry.
Yeah. What it means for the not valleys. I think you can really see from the fact that it was this kind of like rear guard, like even though they got the bonus point in the end, they got everything they could have wanted from the game. Whilst being in as uncomfortable a position as they will be all season.
Yes, no, absolutely. And as you say, like we could have easily lost that game, and we have lost those fixtures before. And even Benetton came back, so we scored first, and then they scored, and then we scored. And do you mean that could have been a very different sort of game? But the composure showed by what is not a first, like maybe half a side is more than proud. Yeah.
What about the eye gouging on Aserati? Did you see that?
No,
that was bad. Oh, it was bad.
You must have seen a fair few red cards in your time. How does that rate on the level of red cards, on the level of stupidity, right in front of the ref, going right for his eye? I mean, you've got to be pretty stupid,
Absolutely shocking it was, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, what's the stupidest red card that you've seen apart from trying to poke somebody in the eye in front of the ref?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, so I watched the entire 1987 Rugby World Cup back last year because, of course, I did. And I'll tell you what, the Romanian team had this pair of brothers called the Constantines who were ridiculous because they were very, very tall and even more violent. And at one point, Stefan Constantine, who was also, I think he was the co-captain, the kind of vice captain. He captained for one of the 3 games, I think. He punched someone in the face right in front of the referee. The referee called him over and went, "Don't do that again." So the next maul, he's watching the referee. He sees they're not looking, punches someone else in the face. The touch judge steps in and is like, he just did it again. He just punched someone in the face. So the referee calls him over and is like, okay. Last warning. This time I will send you off. And Constantine then pops up 2 minutes later and he sort of elbows someone, which I think technically isn't the same thing. The ball comes loose. He sprints it in from 40 meters, scores the winning try. And the referee kind of looks at him and the judge is like, well, he did elbow someone, but then he scored, so it's fine. And he got away with it. And it doesn't answer your question. But in my head, he got sent off and then scored the winning try, but he didn't. I don't have an answer for your question. I just wanted to talk about the Romanian lockdown in the 1980s.
I more rich for hearing it, isn't it? That was a different time, wasn't it?
It really was.
But do you remember that prop against England, who absolutely lamped Wade Dooley? He literally came onto a line out. And I remember the commentator saying, 19-year-old prop coming in wants to make a big impact. This is a guy
Argentina.
to watch.
Surely done that.
Whack, and just completely floors Dwayne Duke. And he's standing there going like, well, I don't. It was clear as day. Just lamped him, took him clean off his feet. And I think he was only on the pitch for like about 3 or 4 minutes, and he got red carded and stuff. It was an absolute classic punch. Not that I condone violence, but it was really good to watch.
That's it. Like, if you're going to get yourself sent off doing something stupid, at least punch someone. You know. Knock them out the old-fashioned way. Like, none of this flying in and doing stupid clear-outs. Like, that is stupid. Those are the worst ones. The ones where someone actually just punches someone. That's to be celebrated. We need more of that. We need to bring that
back. Cool kid here. Do you remember Earl Thomas in the French game, like knocking the boy?
Paul James on Perry Freshwater? You know, just like the referee turned his back while the scrum was resetting and he punched him in the face. Like, that's what I want my props to be doing. Yeah, you know, I want a prop who's unafraid to punch someone.
And then more proper rucking where they just like get raked out of the way. If they're on the wrong side, absolutely rake them out the way. You know,
the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to pretend this is going to solve the game's problems because it won't. But
it'll be fun to watch.
It'll be fun to watch.
But somebody shared a video today of Danny Grewcock. It was when Dwayne Peel was playing for Wales, and we were attacking on their line, and Danny Grewcock literally steps over the top of a ruck. He's like about 8'4", and his leg just comes over and catches Dwayne Peel straight in the face. Whack! Like that.
I remember that.
But the best bit is
we got
Gareth
penalised,
Thomas.
didn't we?
Yeah, Gareth Thomas comes in and goes like that, and the ref goes, yellow card.
Yeah, we got penalised.
You just nearly blinded him with his stud, ref, and you're yellow carding him. But which is a nice link into Scarlett. I thought we were absolutely superb. It was
Edinburgh went at their best, were they? Let's be honest. Like, Edinburgh went
moments.
After going through that first half of the season, and then we get to that bit where just everything is, clicking and everything. Even like Johnny McNichol's chip over the top. I can guarantee you, start of the season, that ball would have bounced the wrong way. And the whole thing would have gone to shit, and somebody would have picked it up, and a prop would have had a drop goal from the 40-yard line. And now it just bounces up, and it's just so it's lovely to watch. And
that was a great review.
That's it, boys. I'm done.
Onwards.
Let's talk about England. Let's talk about England now.
Yeah.
That was a good performance. Yeah, no, fair play. Yeah.
No, it's a good win. They scored some lovely tries, the Scarlets.
Yeah,
you got to give them credit. And a lot of people talking about Dwayne Peel, how he's turned it around to that. I actually think Lee Blackett deserves a lot of credit because it's no coincidence that since he came in from Wasps, they've been playing much better.
Yeah. Well, look at the grief. Look at the grief Peel was getting at the start of the season because they weren't winning. It was like Ring of Roses, one in, one out. Good luck. But no, fair play.
What do you think, Squidge?
Yeah, that was the thing I was starting to wonder is, did I greatly underrate Dwayne Peel? Because I didn't really see much in him as an attack coach when he was at Ulster. And then I didn't quite get the big tug of war over him with the non-color related team and the color related team. I didn't really get why they were both so eager for him. And then it kind of felt like it's often a big mistake, someone that is that level of legend and hero as a player going back as a coach, because you can kind of unless you go on and take them to even greater heights, you can kind of only ruin your own reputation.
Yes.
Like Gregor Townsend going back to Glasgow worked, but basically every other example has basically, you look at how far Ronan O'Gara is running away from that Munster job because he knows it can only go badly. And I kind of felt like that was what was happening. And I didn't see anything in that first half of the season where I was like, oh, this is close. In the way you look at the Ospreys in that first half of the season, you were like, oh, they're one big win and a bit of confidence away from this clicking. And the Dragons you kind of looked at in that first half of the season and went, actually, there's something there that they can build on. And Cardiff, you looked at and went, they're winning, but this is going to fall apart at some point because it always does. I'm not.
I can't argue.
But the Scarlets, I was kind of looking at it going like, I don't quite see how this is going to turn around with Peel. And then, as you say, I think Blackett's been a big factor. Clearly, he's clearly changed something and has added something. But I don't think him going at the end of the season will necessarily break that. I think there's maybe been learnings made from having a more experienced coach in with what is ultimately quite a young coaching group. I think they've clearly learned quite a lot in this half of the season and will be far better, not just the rest of this season, but next year as well when Blackett's gone. Presuming he doesn't stick around, if the rumours of him going to Bristol and stuff are true. All back to Wasps, now they're in Worcester. But I think, really great win for the Scarlets. And they are a very, very different prospect now to even just, a month and a half ago.
How difficult is it as an Osprey supporter to praise the Scarlets?
Who are you asking now? Who are you asking?
I'll be honest. There are weeks where, in the start of the season, like the Leicester game and the Montpellier game, where bad throw, best tonight, boys. Do you know what I mean? How difficult is it?
This is the thing I've had though. Is I grew up as an Ospreys fan in the East Midlands during the period where the Ospreys played Leicester all the time, and they seemed to play in the final, the Anglo-Welsh every year. They seemed to draw each other in Europe every other year, and it was just constant. And I think for a long time, because when I was a kid, that was the kind of big, that was a big rivalry, and the Scarlets were not so great, and the Ospreys routinely beat them. And it was, for a long time, that kind of felt like the big rivalry to me in my head, even though they weren't in the same league. Because that was where I was from. It was kind of the team where there was bragging rights, because I knew Leicester Tigers fans, whereas I didn't know Scarlets fans. And then it started, then once I kind of, it was only with time and with Wayne Pivac that started to change. And so I don't find it as difficult as I should, but they've become, like I always say with the Six Nations, like I find England the team I want to beat most, but Ireland the team I hate losing to most. And it's maybe like I hate losing to the Scarlets, but beating them is not as satisfying as maybe it should be, which is probably an awful thing to say given how, last season. No, it is enormous. Yeah, I'm talking myself in circles. I'm very sure Colin, you have a very different answer.
It's weird because like Carwin was tweeting stuff earlier, and I was about not having 14 players back, this, that, and the other. And there's a little bit of me going, I've got a little bit of sympathy for you here, and we should be sticking up for a mate. And then there's this other bit of me going like, fuck it, the Ospreys are getting tanked. I'm making the most of this because, you don't know when this is going to end. Make the most of it while it's happening, Yeah,
well, look, we do have, the main European competition to look forward to now.
There you go. And then Carwin opens his mouth again and is
back in the big boy league,
Yeah.
When I was Saracens.
When I was on the way back from Leicester, I was at Leicester train station after, I don't know if you remember, Colin, you might remember this. The Ospreys beat Leicester a few weeks ago in Walford Road. Yeah. When was the last time any of the other three beat them?
I
Was
can't
it
remember.
that Welford Road? Yeah.
Two seasons ago in a pre-season, but I'm not. You boys carry on.
Are we putting this pod out? Yeah.
Just to remind you, Dragons did beat Ospreys earlier this season. Thank you very much.
I don't remember that.
Memory blank now, isn't it?
Yeah, Jack Walsh has forgotten it as well. I was at the train station and I was sat behind a group of Leicester fans, and one of them was saying they only need the losing bonus point to go through, so I think it's really disrespectful that they went for the try and didn't just kick it off. And I could have listened to that guy talk all night. Like the sheer salty tears pouring out of his mouth. Not even out of his eyes, tears out of his mouth. It was delicious. I could have listened to that all day. So I completely get.
Do you get recognised, Squidge, when you go out and about in the different rugby grounds and that? Do you get many people coming and saying, you're Squidge Rugby?
It happens in rugby settings, but very rarely outside of it. So, it happened when I was just, walking down the street a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, it's pretty much, it happened a reasonable amount at that Leicester game, which is the last game I went to, I believe. Yeah. And if I am if I go to a game or I'm in somewhere that is generally a rugby environment, so it happened a lot more when I was in, Swansea than when I'm in Nottingham. Yeah, but it depends, but it happens. It's weird. I still haven't quite got used to it.
That's the adoration Jamie's after.
It'll come.
Yeah. I got mentioned in Rugby Pass. I'm happy. That's all I'm saying. That'll do me.
I think you'll find that was James Phillips. James.
Yes. Welsh Rugby tweeter James Phillips. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, if we all get shirts from this podcast, you're having James Phillips.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Tiny Rebel.
Sponsored by Tiny Rebel. Yeah.
Well, when I told my boy's a player, he's 18 years old, and he basically repeats your videos back to me on a weekly basis. And I'll say to him, what do you think of the game? Well, I think you'll find if you look at this bit here and then I'll watch your video and it's like word for word. And I told him that you were on tonight and he'd already booked to go and play badminton with a mate. And he's all like, no, Dad, no, you give him a different time. I'll just sit in the background. I just be there. Like, no, fella, you go play badminton. You'll be fine. But yeah.
Oh, thank him for me. That's lovely. That's really lovely.
It's nice.
And good luck with his badminton. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm invested. I can analyse that. I can turn on a video on that again. There's not much else going on in rugby.
He will send you one. You say stuff like that, he will send you a video. So let's move on to the serious stuff then. And like, if you were making a video of Welsh Rugby right now, off-field Welsh Rugby, and you were taking and analysing the bits here, there, and everywhere, what would that video look like?
Right. So right next to me, I have just down here a bin. I would take this bin. I would take a match, and I would set fire to this bin and upload footage of that. I think that's easier than trying to explain what's going on in Welsh Rugby. I think it's an unbelievable just shambles. Everything is. I think it's probably important that it's happening. It's a shame it's happened during a Six Nations and it's happening when it is, but it's important probably that we have this happen and we have this come out so we can come out the other side of it. This has probably been overdue for some time. But it is a state and it is horrible, and it is almost getting to a point now where one scandal is undermining the last. You're kind of forgetting about, like we all forgot. We barely mentioned, Nigel Owens' homophobia stuff. Like that got brushed under the carpet because it was in between like 3 other scandals. It's just constant. But yeah, this has been overdue for some time. And it's quite difficult to talk about this Welsh team in the Six Nations now of the context that is building and it's changing constantly, which is why I've scrapped my script on the Scotland game so many times because the circumstances keep changing around it. So yeah, it's a horrible but necessary time in Welsh Rugby, I think.
Pace has changed, isn't it? Like in what we were saying about earlier when we were talking about Dixon going off and things like that. He's just one example, isn't it, of a workforce under so much pressure that you very rarely see these days, like in any other industry, going through what they're going through, isn't it? Like the state of and the sort of the mental health after this will be felt for years to come by this current crop of players, I think, isn't it? From the youngsters, more of the old heads, have you? And it's just so criminal.
Well, look at Halaholo. Halaholo's been on Twitter talking about mental health and worried about his kids and the mortgage. And we've had Sam Cross as well from the Ospreys. We had Bradley Davis. I mean, this is who is most affecting, actually. We're talking about the internationals, but it's that middle bracket of players, those regional players. They're the ones who are in most danger, those sort of middle earners, and it's just so worrying. It really is. But it's hard to know where to start. I mean, we did a one-off bonus pod, didn't we, with Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones is brilliant. But if anyone hasn't listened to that, go back and listen to it. And it's just, it was hard to know where to start. And Hugh did so well in explaining it. It just needs to be a complete reset from top to bottom. Welsh rugby, from root to branch, there needs to be absolute reform, because it's just one thing after the other. It really is. It's just, what can you do?
You said, Rob, it's with everything that's happening at such a pace, it's hard to get excited. The actual rugby, isn't it?
Yeah.
What have you? And we're talking about the England game, but it's just like, oh.
Yeah, we all want the match to go ahead, but I'd fully support the players if they did go on a strike.
Absolutely.
I think everyone would.
Full on.
But something's got to make the bigwigs sit up and take notice, because I don't think it's been taken seriously. I really don't. And like you said, Reece, it's about players' mental health, their families as well. That's the most important thing to a player. It's not the rugby; it's the family. I hope things work out for the best now, and I hope things are all announced on Wednesday, and we get on with the game. Things are sorted, and we start moving forward in the right direction. But
and hammer England.
I don't know, and hammer England.
The thing is you think like you've got as deep as you can go and as ridiculous as you can go, and then you wake up Sunday morning, and then Jamie's just sent you a picture of an article saying that Ealing Trailfinders are in negotiations with the Ospreys to merge. And it's just like, do you know what I mean? How ridiculous are we going to get?
Rumours, isn't it? And that's what's annoying me. We're not getting any facts or details. All we're getting is speculation and rumours. And that does nothing to quell the fears from players and supporters or anyone else, is it? I mean, this Ealing Ospreys, it's bonkers, Squidge, isn't it? I mean, it's absolute bonkers. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think it depends on how they handle it. There's a world in which if the options are the Ospreys cease to exist and they take it away and they go down to 3 regions, or they become the Trailfinder Ospreys and they play some of their games in London, some of them in and around the region itself, around Swansea. Because like the thought of them moving, say, the Scarlets game or the other Welsh derbies to play in London is absurd. Like this team who have an investment and an identity within the region, then moving to London is silly. But at the same, but if that is the option, then you've kind of got to go, right, okay, well, it's better than losing it.
But why is it always it's the Ospreys spoken about?
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that kind of existential fear that hangs over everything. And being at Walford Road, I recognise as it was by another group of Ospreys fans, and we then did like a victory lap around the stadium and chanting and singing all of that, and it was wonderful and it was great. But one of them pointed up the stadium and said, like, this, like up to Welford Road, and went, like, this matters because every time the union's in trouble, it's our necks on the block. It's us who are going to be cut. And we've just won in Welford Road. We won in Montpellier a few weeks ago. They can't cut us now, And like, that was the stakes. That was what was on the line there. And yet you get a month down the line, you get the Ospreys haven't lost a game since then, or hadn't lost a game since then until it, the rumours started coming out. And yet, who is it that's, first to be lined up to be moved to Ealing to play in their stadium in front of 3 fish and a schoolboy? It's the Ospreys, inevitably. It always is, as you're saying.
And as we always say, we are the most successful region, in the pro years. And why can't they talk about Cardiff? Why can't they talk about?
When did you last win? Yeah, but when did you last win the championship, Carl?
It was a few years back, but that's when we were the trailblazers for Welsh rugby at that time,
and now we'll be the trail finders.
Yes.
Hey, excellent.
Hey,
this is not a laughing matter. It's not.
We've been working on that now for a week.
That was good. Going so well.
Why is it always the Ospreys? Like, you look at the size of Newport, you look at the size of Cardiff, you look at the size of Swansea. They're all big places. They've got big, they've got lots of people there that can come and watch a game. And then you look at Llanelli, which is tiny in comparison, but Llanelli seems to, we suck more people into each game than the Ospreys do. And like you say, credit where credit's due. Ospreys have been successful, but people aren't coming to that stadium to watch the game. And I don't understand why. I don't get why they're not going to watch the Ospreys in Swansea. Because, Neath Swansea Ospreys, as it started, Neath is literally a 10-minute hop up the road. Why are people not coming to watch the Ospreys at the Liberty?
You can say that about all the teams, though, Lee. All our teams serve. I mean, Cardiff have had decent attendances, but we're all struggling to get crowds in and regular good attendances. It's not solely exclusive to the Ospreys, is it? It's a Welsh rugby problem.
The size of the stadium doesn't make it look great either. So, when I went down to watch them play Leinster on New Year's, the atmosphere was fantastic, and there was a decent crowd on both sides of the stadium. But it wasn't a huge crowd, but it was still great fun. Yes, it would have been great if there'd been another 4,000 people there, 5,000, whatever. But like I said, and at the times we're living in as well, people can't afford it. It's that simple.
And you then throw in the fact the stadium is so far outside of town. And like I was staying in town before the Leicester game, the other Leicester game, before Christmas. And I hadn't done the walk from Swansea City Centre to there before, and it's a 45-minute walk in, so you lose any walk-up crowd. There's no kind of momentum and no one going. You've got a huge stadium, there will be spare tickets and spare seats, and yet you haven't got people going, we'll just join the crowds there, because people drive over, people to get the bus, etc. Like it's a trip over, rather than just, it's not like the Arms Park where you can kind of stumble across, or even like Rodney Parade where it's not far away. I think it's a.
We tried the stadium as well, like with the Cardiff City Stadium sort of thing, and that didn't work.
That worked out well, didn't it?
It was awful. I think that's part of it as well, where people who maybe do make that effort to go out there, have a 27,000-seater stadium with 5,000 people in it, and and there's no atmosphere, and and stuff like that. And I think that makes people go, wow.
What I would say though, in the CCS though, when Cardiff won the Challenge Cup and they were successful, they were getting crowds of about 14,000, 15,000. And I think this is part of the problem. People, success is the biggest driver of crowds. People want to come and see a winning product on the field. And when our teams are struggling, it's very difficult to attract the casual fan. The hardcore will always be there. If you want to attract the casual fan and the walk-up crowd, it is very difficult when you're struggling on the field.
It's like
when I stand as well, you can just see people's hair getting a lot grey, and you think we've got to bring some more kids in by here.
Well, I'm a Dragons fan and I'm bald, so this is what Dragons does too. I have full head of hair before I go season ticket.
But you say it's about the proof of the crowds. It's like Edinburgh playing up in Murrayfield, and there's I don't know, 40 people watching them. Yeah, maybe a bit more. But now they've moved to a decent stadium just outside. They're getting a full house every week. And they're generating the atmosphere, and the team are playing better. They're reacting to it,
They play good rugby as well. They're a good team under Mike Blair, so people want to see that, and they're a good team. It's tough. It's really tough.
Something I did want to get your thoughts on, Rob, is Sam Warburton said about North East South West the so-called compass point teams. And, someone live. For me, I live far west. I live literally just before you fall into the sea. If you catch the ferry, then you'll be okay. But up until then, that's how far west I am.
That's where we keep him.
Yeah. And there are several court orders in place to make sure. So, but do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people in North Wales that probably would really like to. And I know the heartland is the south, it's the M4 corridor, but there's only so much of that we can do. Half the Scarlets players live in Cardiff anyway. Do you know what I mean? Half the Ospreys players live on the outskirts of Cardiff. So it's not a problem from a logistics point of view of merging sides in South Wales. But do you then put a North Wales side in? What's your thoughts on it? Does that work or does it not?
It would have made sense 20 years ago when they drew up the regions. I think we're now so far into this that I am part of a generation who don't remember, kind of the first generation who don't remember the clubs. I was never a Swansea or a Neath or an Aberavon fan. I was an Ospreys fan. That was the kind of team I was introduced to when I first got into rugby, beyond it being something that was on sometimes in the house. When I got properly invested and into it, it was the Ospreys already. And the problem is, you're saying, the crowds are statistically getting older and there isn't as many coming in, but those, you would then have lost 20 years of people that have become instantly disenfranchised again, having already had the people that were lost from the first switch. And we can't keep doing that every 20 years. If it were that they moved one of the regions, they moved and they went, the Dragons or the Ospreys are now based in North Wales, maybe that works better, but you then still lose a huge portion of the crowds. And there is an appetite in North Wales. You look how well the under-20s does every year. But at the same time, someone posted a map on Twitter of where all the rugby clubs in Wales are. And so much of it is, as you say, along that corridor. It's an idea that makes sense, but that's never how Welsh rugby's been governed in the past. And it's almost like, well, why are we starting with common sense now? It's what would have been the right decision 20 years ago. Wales didn't make it then. And it becomes a case of, do we try and do the right thing now and admit we wasted 20 years in which time everyone else got ahead of us and we kind of ruined, potentially ruined, and you look at, you're moving this Ospreys team at the minute have the strongest academy by some distance of any of the regions. And if you move them up north, are you losing and disenfranchising that young crop of players who are being best managed of any of the regions? And that it all there's so many factors at work beyond just the crowds and beyond just the fans. Again, forcing the players to move to London or Wrexham or whatever, it's less of a problem if they, I'm walking in circles again, but yeah, I think it's a complicated issue that Welsh rugby has put itself in, rather than one that's naturally occurred.
But then so much of Welsh rugby at the minute is like that. We've dug a hole, and when it got just enough deep enough for us to get out, we jumped in the hole and then digged another 4 foot, and we just don't. For me, as someone, I was playing when the game went professional and when there were all the strikes at the time, and the game was awash with money and stupid people were getting stupid money and stuff like that. And this is the frustrating bit for me, is we've been here before. We've been at the brink so many times, and you just get frustrated that nobody's really put a foot on the pedal and gone, right, let's stop and let's actually think about what we do now going forward, because what we're doing now, it just isn't working, boys.
Did you see Wayne Pivac's comments on the weekend? So Wayne Pivac was a pundit and Fireplay for the Scarlets game, and he was talking about the Osprey Scarlets merger, and he said he thought it was going to be a great thing for Welsh rugby, and a plan apparently then was to bring North Wales in, and he said it was very, very close. And I posted the clip, and the amount of Scarlet's fans replying saying, "Van Pivac's not in charge of rugby." It's like so funny. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because we had Warren Gatland on the weekend. I don't know if you saw this. I was reading in The Guardian, and he was talking about the 60 cap rule. And he was saying, well, he works for 4 regions, but, if we go down to 3 or we go down to 2, and this is the coach of the national team openly suggested to go down to 3-2. I was astonished by that, and I think that went under the radar. The fact he was openly saying, well, if we cut a region or 2, we could. I couldn't believe it.
And so much of why Wales have, people talk about Wales having success despite the regions or whatever, but actually the regions have produced a consistent base of players who are playing professional rugby, and very often, you saw players like Corey Hill, to mention, but him, Andrew Coombs. You saw so many players kind of who played solidly at regional level that then Gatland saw something and was able to turn into proper international players, or when Pivac was able to turn into free cap players that he then dropped the moment they played well. And it was just like, it was a consistent theme throughout both eras. It's like us having a strong base of players to pick from has really helped Welsh rugby, whether or not the regions being competitive with, teams outside Wales.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people saying, we should follow the Scottish model, a lot of pundits saying that. And I think, well, okay, on the one hand, yes, we will have stronger teams if we went down to 2. But, I love Scotland, and I don't want any Scottish listeners to get offended, but they've won fuck all for years. They haven't had any, no, but I'm not. They haven't had any international success with 2 teams. So there's the same with Italy. Now, don't get me wrong, they're both improving, and that's great. I hope Scotland can continue their trajectory upwards, same with Italy. But we need to stop looking at, let's do what Scotland do, or let's do Ireland do. We need to do what works in Wales. Yes, and that's it's just no way what works in Wales. Let's stop copying people, because what works in Ireland necessarily won't work in Wales. We just need to decide and figure out once and for all, where are we going? And it seems nobody has the answer to this question.
The other thing is, like, this won't work. This doesn't work financially, but I think a lot of the problems could potentially. So I think Wales has the player pool for 4 regions, or certainly can do. And it has the money for maybe 3.5, which is kind of part of the problem. And they've rounded up to 4. And a lot of people go, well, could we spread out, be more competitive with 3? But I wonder, and it's not realistic, is would more fans be interested if there were 6 Welsh regions? If it had been split up on a more on a wider geographical basis, you had a North Wales team, you had maybe you appeased Twitter and had the Valleys team or something else, so that people felt more connected to their teams while still being regional. And you had, like the Ospreys playing in a smaller, tighter stadium. And if you could change that, would that be the best for the crowd and for engagement and for building like rivalries and kind of competition? But it isn't realistic at all. And so I think like any solution you think of, you're like, well, there's a big problem there. So we've just thrown ourselves into this ridiculous situation where the fact that we're thinking is silly.
Yeah, we would have to have a pro region just for Owen Robbins based in Pontypridd, the Valley Commandos. They would sell it out. They would sell it out. No, that's going to come back. They would get 20,000 through the gates. No, don't edit it out. They'll get 20,000 through the gates every week. They'll be taking 10 buses on away trips. Let's do it. Let's make Ponty a proper region now.
But the team should just be Owen Robbins himself. We haven't got the money for it. We're just going to put Owen Robbins out against Leinster and see how he gets on.
We need real integrated regions. Sorry if do not like.
Oh, fuck.
That's a reference to someone guess.
When the Dragons played in Ystrad the other week, right around the corner from my grandparents' house, which is so weird, but you saw the massive crowds like piling around. You saw the millions at the gates.
It was
like banging there. Yeah, it's like bloody... It was like watching Maradona go back to Argentina on his homecoming game. Like, just people outside, floods of people. It was extraordinary.
Empty seats of the valleys.
Yeah.
So when Robbins would say.
The thing for me with Ystrad is it's really fucking cold. It doesn't matter. When you go there,
so it's like up there.
It's cold. And I've been there in the summer. I went there last summer for July game or whatever. I had 2 jumpers and a coat on. It was bright sunshine.
Where my grandparents live, I spent every summer there. Like, it would be start of the summer holidays. We'd be shipped up to Australia and we'd stay there for weeks on end. And yeah, it's freezing. I don't think there was ever a hot day in Australia. At the very least, like, you'll see the sun's out and you'll be like, oh, brilliant, it's warm. And they'll say, like, it's 38 degrees today. And you head outside and it'll be windy as hell. And you'll be like, oh, you can't actually feel it, though. You can't feel the warmth.
The guys that run the cafe in Ystrad Mynach, the guys at the very end, and they sell the warm soup and the warm coffee. They don't sell cold drinks. They haven't got a fridge.
They do. The tea is cold. Give it 90 seconds.
Here's a cup.
All right, so let's move on to positive things. Let's move on to England on Saturday.
Oh, will it go ahead? You say positive. We don't know if it's going ahead.
Okay, let's assume that the England game. Otherwise, we sit there and we go, what are you drinking on Saturday while there's no rugby on, James? It doesn't make for a good podcast, mate.
I think it will go ahead. I think the compromise will be reached. That's my prediction. What do we reckon, guys? Do you think they'll go ahead? I think it will.
Yeah,
I think it'll, with what's at stake, with the loss of money for everybody, isn't it? I think it'll end up going ahead just for those reasons.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Squidge?
Yeah, there's 10 million on the line. Like, this is the Welsh Rugby Union's biggest fundraiser for 2 years, and this is a World Cup year where they get the rest of the year after this game. They've got 2 World Cup warm-ups, and that's it. That's, and Judgment Day, but like, that's it for international rugby. There's no autumn internationals. They need this game more than ever, really.
Yeah,
it'll go ahead, won't it?
It's surprising how much something like that will focus the mind on. We've had 2 years to sign this deal. They've had 2 years to work on this deal, and now we're a week away from we're 5 days away from the England game, and now people are starting to go, right, we really need to get this signed. We really need to get it. It's Welsh rugby all over, isn't it? It's it's lazy, it's slow, it's sluggish, it's self-interested, it's all the bad stuff all kind of rolled into one, and then you've got players wanting to play that game, and nobody wants to turn down a cap. When you get the opportunity to wear a Welsh cap, you snap someone's arm off for it, and it's not fair on those players to be put in that position, but there it is. That's what I say. That's Welsh rugby. So let's assume that it goes ahead. Let's assume that it goes ahead.
Yes. Okay.
So
positive thinking.
For a game, how sober do you have to be to watch that game? Because that's your bread and butter. That's what you do after. Me, I'm half cut before kickoff because it eases the game through there. But does it take an edge off the game for you, having to kind of see it in a different way?
Was that to me? Sorry.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, I find I tend to just watch Wales as a fan primarily, and then we'll watch it back in a kind of, at the minute, in a very cold post-mortem. And it's sort of it's been miserable lately. But I find it does often, sometimes, like the World Cup semi-final, I found it really helped afterwards. Like, I was, after that game, I watched it with my mum and my brother, and we got the 100 pollards as his kick was going over. My mum said, "This just doesn't feel fair." And then me and my brother sat in silence for the rest of the game. Then the game finished. We watched all of the punditry. We watched that in total silence. None of us said a word. My mum left the room. Me and my brother were still sat in silence on the sofa. And Johnny English Reborn started on ITV. And both of us sat and watched it in silence. We watched the entire film without saying a word. And it wasn't until about an hour after that I got up and started to stress eat, and eventually we started talking, and I found it was actually going back and kind of analysing the game, going like, okay, this is where it didn't go so well, this is where it could have changed, or things could have been different, or why the game was so close. That actually it started to help process it. It's kind of dealing with the stage of the guilt, of the grief. So I think I'm fully preparing that to be my Saturday evening.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm bracing myself for the whole thing.
Can I be positive? Unusually positive.
I don't know.
No. Serious though, right? If there was one game where Wales can put everything on the line, put their emotions in check, it would be against England in Cardiff. And that's why I would not be surprised if we beat England. Now, I know that's a big call with the way things are going and how we're playing. But honestly, if there was one game where we pull it out the bag, I think they could do it against England at the Principality Stadium.
Yeah, I think it being in Cardiff and this being such a transitional England team as well.
Yeah,
I can completely see it. And Gatlin is so good at that kind of tying a squad together and doing that and using that as a springboard. I can completely see it. I can also see it being a kind of record loss in Cardiff.
Yeah, I'm not saying we will win. I'm just saying.
I can see that world completely.
Yeah.
We're talking. Could I ask? I got a few short questions from a mail. Would it be all right to ask one about the England game? And it's in regards to somebody's asked if Ford and Smith are both fit and in form available, who would you start alongside Farrell?
I mean, I think George Ford is a better player. If it was the first game of the campaign, I'd start Ford. I would put Smith at 10 and bring Ford off the bench where we are right now. And I also think he's a great impact player, George Ford, that's kind of often underrated because he's got a pretty complete skill set. You look at how differently he played when he came off the bench against Australia in last World Cup, where he came on and just kicked the lever off it because he saw that was what the game needed, compared to how he played against Scotland early that year, where he came on and was such a kind of attacking force. That's what I would do. Though also, if I was the England coach, I'd pick like Ollie Chesham at 10 and just see how it goes because I'd want them to lose.
You had us worried for a minute. Did you see it at the end of Scrum 5 with they had Ian Evans on about the 93 game in Cardiff?
Yeah, did.
No, I was there for that game.
Wow.
I was at the very when they do the big shot. There's a British Gas banner. I was on the R of the British Gas.
Oh wow!
Right behind there, and it's one of those. We were shit at the time. We were getting pasted left, right, and
center. It's the 90s, wasn't it? Wales in the 90s. Well, that's where we're heading to, unfortunately, isn't it?
But we were all over the shop at the time, and England were just coming into like their golden kind of period, and everything in that game said that we were going to get an absolute kicking and half. And it was the first game that I went to where I wasn't in the under-15s terrace at the top. It was the first game of being in the proper terrace where people tell you, keep your hands in your pockets because at half time somebody will come down beside you and piss in your pocket and all of that kind of stuff. All of that kind of stuff going on. And so I was saying to my boy today about the Beatable advert that went out, and it just captured everything and it was what we were all saying through the week. Beatable. Grab some eggs. They're beatable. Grab a drum. It's beatable. England. Beatable. And I just wish we had something like that now. I wish we had a campaign, a BBC campaign or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Just something that...
They used to do really good promos, didn't they, BBC Wales, over the years? But we don't see that anymore, do we?
But it would give us something to get behind.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It would.
It would say for a couple of minutes, forget about everything else, just for 80 minutes or 100 minutes on Saturday. None of that matters. It can matter again after the game, but when the ref blows the whistle or the anthems start, this is what it's about. And we desperately need something that says that it's doable, and bit of belief in ourselves and that kind of stuff. Because I say we were way more shit back in '93 than we are now. You know.
Oh God, yeah.
More shit. You know, now we only look shit. Back then we were proper shit. You know.
It was ridiculous.
Well, a couple of weeks before that game in '93, they did a whole tour of the country. Alan Davis trying to get coaches, like the start of Coach CPD. And I was one of the boys that was used to, like, he had the kids at the time, which was me, and he'd kind of like demonstrate coaching techniques and this, that, and the other. So I'm on the pitch, and I got Alan Davis, and it was one of the props and one of the backs at the time that, and you're sitting, you're going like, oh, this is really good. This is really, I'm loving this. I'm amazed. And then you get this reality that actually we're doing this because we're really, really shit. And do you know what I mean? So, you know, we've come on so far since then. We have, but yeah, we just need something to lighten the mood to talk about next week, because otherwise next week's going to be fucking horrendous. Yeah.
So here's a question I got for you then, Squidge. So Gatland's in a bit of a tricky place at the moment, because he's got to decide, does he keep faith with the old guard, or does he carry on bringing in the new blood? How do you think Gatland should approach this England game? Because he is in a bit of a tricky dilemma. I would say, how would you approach it?
That's the really interesting one, isn't it? It's a really big question. Yeah. I think you look at, like, just looking at the 10 position, right? Because it's Wales. Dan Biggar had one of his, I think my brother mentioned this, Will mentioned this he was on Blood and Mud, and like we got up a list of Dan Biggar's Wales appearances, and the only game I could think of where he was arguably as bad as he was against Scotland was the 16-all draw with Fiji in 2010. So you're... Yeah, I was there. I was there. Yeah. What a wonderful day. I left school early to get to Cardiff on time, and boy, I wish I'd done double maths instead.
They sold out of hot dogs 20 minutes into the game. That's how bad that game was.
That's the best statistic I've ever hit.
Yeah, I went down to get hot dogs at 20 minutes into the game because I was bored as hell, and they'd already sold out. Sorry, I interrupted.
No. One of the worst games I ever played. Just atrocious. And yeah, I think Dan Biggar had a game on par with that. I thought he was atrocious, and yes. Like I tweeted about this, but like, I really hated how he handled the Rio Dyer thing.
I know, yeah.
And I'm sure this has all been covered a million times. I thought he was petulant and childish and poor, and well below his usual standards, which normally means a week later Dan Biggar puts in a world-class performance.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the thing, is like you're kind of going like, the sensible thing would be you put someone else in now, but you look at the other 10s in the squad, and there isn't really a young guy you can look at and go, okay, you're the 10 for the future. And there isn't Gareth Anscombe, who is tried and tested as the starting 10. So you're kind of going like, what your choice is Reece Patchell, who has played very well, but he's only ever played well when he's come in for someone that is injured or missing. And I rate Reece Patchell, and I like him a lot, but he's too old now to be we're investing in you for the next how many ever years, because he's probably got maybe 3 or 4 more years than Dan Biggar. And yes, it's a World Cup cycle, but it doesn't feel like the kind of momentum swing and kind of changing the guard. And it kind of and I know Owen Williams is a similar age. I think he's slightly older than Patchell. So there isn't there isn't the Costello option, and that makes sense because Costello was below what I think we were all hoping in the autumn when given the chance, and that isn't to write him off, but that's like, he clearly, I think, needs a bit more time before he's ready, and maybe needs a couple of games before you can chuck him in against England, though he was always outstanding against England at age grade level. That was always the game he was best in, so maybe actually we should put Sam Costello at 10. But Wales have kind of been left in a position where, because, as I mentioned, Pivac did that thing where he capped about a third of the population. Actually, statistically, I think one of us should have a cap from Pivac. You put 5 Welsh qualified people in a room, and providing one of them has played in the Premiership at some point, he will have capped them. But that was kind of the Wayne Pivac approach, was he gave caps to 1 billion players. They all got kind of free caps, and then he discarded them. And he referred, he just loved options, Wayne Pivac. He just loved having options more than he loved creating international standard rugby players. But it's kind of left Wales in a position where they've got lots and lots of players they know they could put in, but none who they know they can rely on. So it's you're kind of left in a situation where you can't do the thing that Gatland did in 2011, where he went, here's a generation of players who were between 20 and 23, 24. And we're going to trust them now, as he did when he kicked Martin Williams out, when he brought the Faletau Liddy at Warburton in, etc., when he changed a lot of that team, Jonathan Davis in, and so on. He hasn't got those options now in the same way. And he's done, Joe Hawkins has happened, but then do you go, is it a risk too far if you put Mason Grady alongside him? It's all a bit of a mess where we haven't got the players in the positions to do that.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at the Welsh players that played best, they are in the Six Nations. They are Josh Adams, who I think has been really, really good despite everything around him. And then, I think Adam Beard's been solid. I think there's been a few players who've been solid, but they're all the younger players generally. Joe Hawkins played well. They're generally the younger players. They're generally not the reputational players that have been lent on, which should be a positive, but it doesn't feel like it this week.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, though, because if you look at the Six Nations, it is the younger players that stood out, isn't it? So like Dark Jenkins, Chris Johnson, Joe Hawkins. I really want to see a big game from George North, because I think he needs to buck his ideas up. And now I like George North a lot, but I need to see a big game from him now, because I think he's been unspeakably poor so far in the Six Nations. And I agree with you about Dan Biggar. This is exactly the kind of game where he'll step up and be like man of the match. That is Dan Biggar. Also, Liam Williams as well. I don't know if he's going to be included, but he's become a liability. 2 yellow cards so far. And again, I like Liam, but I just want to see these players now really step up, especially George North. I think they do big games for England now, aren't they?
I've always thought that if you pick like a young centre, you need an older centre next to him or somebody around him just to marshal him and bring it through that experience, isn't it? But the way George North is playing and the way Joe Hawkins is playing, why not throw Mason Grady in and allow Joe Hawkins just to manage him and send him up like a battering ram?
I've been thinking about Nick Tompkins, and I know he's not a Gatland player, but I just wondered, does he fit in to this game, Nick Tompkins? He does play in the Premiership. You'll know a lot of the England players he's playing against. But it would mean dropping Joe Hawkins, which is harsh. But I mean, I just don't know. I wouldn't want to be Gatland picking this team because it's really difficult, isn't it? Because, we want to bring through players, but we also want to beat England, don't we? We have to give our chance of beating England. It's a tough one, Squidge, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Nick Tompkins feels like the quintessential Pivac player. I just can't imagine him. But then there's always been these two Nick Tompkins. There's been Saracens Nick and Wales Nick. And Wales Nick's a kind of chaotic presence who can just do anything at a given time. Whereas Saracens Nick is a hard-running System 13 who only runs the lines he's told to by the coach. And it's there's two... I don't know if Gatland is just he's waiting until he's managed to coax him into being coax Saracens Nick out of him. This kind of Jekyll and Hyde situation going on at 13. I don't know. Maybe if he can get Saracens Nick out, that'd work. But I don't know. He just feels so Pivac that I forget that it's an option. I forget that Gatland's allowed to pick him. Like Josh McLeod coming back in, the two most quintessentially Pivac players.
Oh, yeah.
But would you now put Alan Wynne-Jones in for secondary? It feels like of all the games you're going to bring Alan Wynne-Jones back in for, England is the game, because he will just wind up at least 6 of the England pack, and they'll be so focused on going at him that they'll actually forget that there's a ball there. So do you bring Alan Wynne-Jones in for this game?
I would. I think this Welsh pack needs both, not just experience, but nastiness, and Alan Wynne's very good at providing that. And Jenkins, I feel we've seen him do some very good shithousery in 20s level, but it's a different thing when you put him against players that you've been watching on TV for a long time. And I think Alan Wynne would be key to that. And I also think a lot of people get hung up on this idea of him being too old and blah, but he is still within the 3 best performing second rows in Wales. He is still, good enough to be in the team. And he was outstanding in those 2 games at Leicester and Montpellier. And I thought I don't think he was a problem against Ireland. You know, I thought there were a lot of people automatically pointing to him being poor because the team were playing poorly, but I think it was an average performance rather than a poor performance in a team that was atrocious. So I would put Alan Wynne back in, absolutely. And if he shits the bed, that's it. Fine, grand, done. Thank you very much. Sailing off into the night as the most cut player of all time, Richie McCaw wiping a single tear away. But I think this is a game for Alan Wynne-Jones, if ever I saw one.
Yeah,
I'm just happy that I've heard somebody else use the phrase "shit the bed."
No, Lee, it's a common phrase. I come on this podcast, Squidge, and it says "shit the bed." He's pissed himself laughing. Who says that? Like pretty much everyone, Lee.
You shit the bed. Yeah,
phrase. Yeah. It's a common phrase.
Not in Pembrokeshire.
I think we must have a bit more culture and class than my end of the world boys.
How do you describe Callum Sheedy if you don't use the phrase "shit the bed"?
We just call him an Osprey wannabe, so that kind of. Right, let's finish up then with some predictions for the England game. Some score predictions. We're gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to bite the bullet. Jamie, you are allowed to be positive. You are allowed to embrace the idea that you're predicting a Wales win won't automatically mean that we shit the bed. Okay, so
you said that very naturally.
I've got it written down just so I don't get the words wrong.
The only problem is when I do try to be positive, it always backfires on me, which is why I think I should just stay being pessimistic. And as a Dragons fan, it is hard being optimistic, of course. So it's really difficult. This, what you're asking me to do. Look, as I said earlier, if it was one game where Wales could put the problems behind them and put everything on the line and get a result, I think it would be England against Cardiff. But I just got a feeling that England are going to have too much for us. I think their pack is going to have too much for us. I think it'd be won and lost up front. I hope George Ford doesn't start because George Ford is a fine player and he does play well against Wales. And I think England will be far more of an attacking threat with George Ford, actually. I think it'll be tight. I'm going to go England by 5 points.
Okie dokie. So, Reese, what's your one?
I think the English side are coming together a little bit more. And what we're talking about, like the mental health and where the state of players' heads are at the moment. So I'm going to say England by 10, unfortunately.
That's negative.
Yeah.
It's really negative.
You
try to be more positive.
I'm gonna leave Squidge do it last. Though.
Okay.
I want you to finish on a peak. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with, and you're gonna love this now, right? Wales 10, England 9. We're gonna repeat the 93 victory. Yeah, we're not going to see the ball for the whole of the second half.
And real die is the run.
But we're going to have one break. We're going to put the ball over the line once, then we'll have a penalty. They'll have 3 penalties, and we're just going to spend the whole of the second half going, holy shit, I can't take another 40 minutes of this. How long? You'll be looking at your watch from about 38 minutes in going, I can't take much more of this, boys. But we're going to come out, it's going to be 10-9, and it's going to be absolutely fucking mental. That's my prediction.
That's a lovely dream you've got there, Lee.
I do it every week, mate. Every week. And the 1 week I don't, but the 1 week I don't do it, the 1 week I don't give the whole Scarlets are going to do this, we go in and turn in a performance like we did last Saturday. And I was sitting there going like, yeah, we might beat Edinburgh by 1 fucking point. So, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So, Squidge, what's your view on the England game?
I mean, there's a quote from Wales Online right before we started. One player told Wales Online he thinks the union think the players are going to cave. They think the strike's going to go ahead. So at the minute, the argument's saying it's going to be a 0-0 draw with England getting a bonus point win. which is a cop-out answer, but I think if the game does go ahead, honestly, my instinct is England by 15.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to go.
I think there's a world in which Wales win by. I think if Wales win, it's probably by like a surprising margin. It's probably not by 1 or 2 points. It's probably by. I mean, Warren Gatland teams never beat anyone by 20 points, but it could be one of those Warren Gatland games where they win by 4 points, but it feels like 40 because the other team's never in it. Or I think it's just going to be horrible. It's going to be kind of comprehensive and England never letting Wales out. Maybe just being excited to see the Ospreys play again after sitting through Wales and then them being crushed there has left me only looking forward to seeing Wales women play, and then that's going to go horribly. So maybe I'm just losing everything. I'm going to be a husk until I see Chile play again. I don't know. But yeah, I think England by a very scary scoreline, and I don't like saying it.
Well, I thought we were going to finish. Yeah, I thought we were going to finish on a big positive one.
Yes, no.
Sorry.
Can I ask one more yes, no answer? Do you keep a tally, Squidge, of how many different names for Johnny Sexton that you use in your videos?
No idea how many I'm at. Andrew Ford did a compilation of a lot of them. He couldn't possibly have got through all of them because there's so bloody many over 5.5 years now or something. It's completely ridiculous. It's grown completely out of hand. In many ways, I regret starting that joke, but you know what? It was I started it because there was one. I did 2 videos on Leinster, having done one on Ireland beforehand, and like in quick succession. And I'd written Sexton's name so many times. Once I just wrote Sex Thing instead, and a Ireland fan then commented saying, "I can't believe you got Jonathan Sexton's name wrong. I'm so offended and upset. I've unsubscribed." And I thought, well, I'm never calling him by his proper name again. And 5 years later, I'm still keeping that bit up.
Good work, Squidge. You're doing all your
Carry on the good work.
Love it. People think the Squidge Hates Ireland thing is overblown, but I have spent 5 years campaigning to piss off one Leinster fan.
That's dedication, that is. That's for the cause.
There's 2 brothers that run like an Irish tailor shop called Sexton's that are so angry with me. And I get like twice a year, I get a message from one of them being furious with me. It's very good.
Thank you.
The very, very last question, I promise now, right? Very, very last question. Austin Healey and all of the shit that went on there, where is all of that at the minute? Because I just thought the way that blew up was hilarious.
It's ridiculous. Because I sent that tweet on my way out. Like, I'd been watching the game. I kind of got slightly frustrated at the fact that Austin Healey was talking about the refereeing rather than like what was a really great game of rugby. Sent that tweet. Probably shouldn't have sent it, but you know, we've all made mistakes on Twitter. And I then went out and I was meeting some people. And then like I checked my phone like 2 hours later or something, and I had loads of messages from people just saying fight him. No context. So I had to kind of like, I say, dive into that and be like, what? Austin Healey's invited me out to the car park for a scrap. That was a completely ridiculous evening. And then like he brought it up twice more. Like he kept mentioning this like bloody youth space tuber that I'm gonna fight in a car park somewhere. And like at the end of the day, right, like I could have played this up. I could have gone in whatever direction. I could have invited, you know, if he gave me a time and a place, I'd probably turn up. But at the end of the day, I'm an adult. And like, I've got no interest in fighting Austin Healey, you know? Like, I'm a grown up. Like, I've got better things to be doing, you know? I've got like bills to pay.
On that note then, gents.
What a note to end.
Yeah, what a way to end. And the bit I'm taking out of that last little bit is But yeah, he's up for it. He'll have a fight. Go on. Name a date.
Well, the thing I thought is like, if Austin Healey gave me a time and place, and I'm going to say this since it probably isn't going to happen now, is what I would have done is I would have turned up and just let him beat me up and asked him if it made him feel better.
Do you feel big now?
Yeah, is that done it? Is that how are you doing, Austin? I think you need this more than I do.
When we send this out, Twitter's just gonna fucking melt down, boys.
We got
right. On that note, then, I just want to thank you for your time. Tonight,
thank you for having me.
It's been great. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's been great fun. Thank you for having me.
My boy is still playing badminton and hasn't arrived back. He's going to be so pissed off. It's unreal. But yeah,
I hope he's won.
But thank you for your time tonight, mate. Greatly appreciated. I hope your England predictions are wrong. But
too.
Yeah, all the very best here, and we shall catch up with you again in the future, mate. Have a good one.
Look forward to it. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Mate.
Cheers, Robbie. Thank you. Nice one.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. We hope you enjoyed it enough to come back next week and listen again. So please do subscribe, rate and review the pod, as it really helps us on most of the platforms that we appear on. You can keep the conversation going on Twitter and Facebook by searching for us or WRAP, WRRAP, or you can email us on Welsh Regional Rugby Pod @gmail.com. We'll be back next week to do some more of the same. We hope you'll come and enjoy this, and in the meantime, enjoy your rugby.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.